Well, Seattle hockey fans, you might have caught the news literally that came down right after I recorded yesterday's episode. And the rumors are true. Adam Larsson officially signs a 4-year deal with the Seattle Kraken. And yet, once again, we find ourselves asking, is this a good deal? Let's break down what we know and how this will impact the Seattle Kraken for the years to come.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are almost at that time of year where we will bring you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. If we're meeting for the first time, my name is Erica L. Ayala. I've been your host of Locked On Kraken since the very beginning. I am a writer and on-air analyst for CBS and CBS Sports HQ. I have written for places like the New York Times, the Washington Post, Forbes, and this, you might have heard of them. It was this expansion team in the Pacific Northwest. Now they go by the Seattle Kraken. So happy to be here for another episode of Locked On Kraken. Want to let you know today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. And how we're going to get this party started is by letting you know the news. That's right. Locked On Kraken insiders, we have already communicated about this, but Big Cat, he is signing an extension with the Seattle Kraken, 4 more years of Adam Larsson. And it's coming in at just a touch above 5 million AAV, 5.25 AAV. The extension will begin in 25-26 and run through the 2028-29 season. This is the quote from the press release. Adam has been a veteran leader for our group on and off the ice in the past 3 seasons, said Seattle Kraken general manager Ron Francis. He is a big right shot defenseman who plays a heavy physical game and has been a cornerstone of our defense since the Kraken's inaugural season. We're excited to have Adam and his family in Seattle for 5 more years. And so it was originally, I believe, so the news came down yesterday. Now, depending who you ask, it was either Frank Saravalli or Vince Dunn with his, the little emoji of a cat. He put 4 of them up on social media. So that was pretty funny. But Frank Saravalli tweeted yesterday, again, right around the time that this episode was made available on YouTube. Sources say #SeaKraken and defenseman Adam Larsson are closing in on a 4-year contract extension. Still some work to do, but sounds like it will end up somewhere between 5 to 6 million AAV. Could be finalized as soon as tomorrow. And then at Daily Faceoff. So Frank tweeted that at 7:28 p.m. Central Time. And then we got the news this morning. Now, Adam Larsson is one of those players that, for me, it took a little while to get accustomed to his game. And I will say, from the eye test alone, Adam Larsson has improved since coming to the Kraken. I didn't really like how he was moving. I still don't like Seattle's defense, but I just wasn't seeing it. I wasn't feeling it. I was not a big fan of Adam Larsson in season 1 in particular. Now, over the years, I've come to really appreciate what Larsson is doing on this team. And this is where we're going to break things down, especially in the second segment. But there's a difference, and I talked about this yesterday. There's a difference between being good on the team you're on and then being good and useful elsewhere. And I'm not saying that that is necessarily the case with Larsson, but it may be. And again, we're going to take a look at some numbers, stats and facts here in a little bit. But let's hear what the community or what the Kraken are saying about Adam Larsson. So this story written by Jeff Baker, who again is now with the Seattle Kraken. Kraken defenseman Adam Larsson is used to locking down the right side of the ice against some of the NHL's top scoring threats for at least 20 plus minutes per game. But with a new 4-year, $21 million contract extension in hand, a deal announced Tuesday, the veteran Swedish Iron Man should help the Kraken seal off that right side in an even broader scale the next half decade or so. Whoa, half decade or so. All right, we'll talk about that again in the second segment. Extending Larsson well beyond his prior remaining 24-25 contract season means the Kraken will almost certainly remain solidified long-term with right-handed shot defensemen on all three pairings, the top two of which now see Larsson and free agent newcomer Brandon Montour, 30, under team control for many years to come. That's a welcome development in an area historically challenging for teams to fill, given the left-handed defenders are far more prevalent across the league. So again, this is Jeff Baker breaking down why the Seattle Kraken would want to lock down Adam Larsson. And I think he's been great for us. He's definitely been a standout as far as the Seattle Kraken. We've talked on Locked On Kraken that, I think he's kind of underappreciated even among the fan base. He does a lot of really solid things. And I would argue by way of being on the blue line, being a defenseman and being a defenseman that is not necessarily known for scoring or even flashy scoring. And when I mean scoring, I'm specifically talking about goals. He can fly under the radar. Okay, so, why would the Kraken want to keep him around? And I mentioned that, he and we've talked about this on the show before. He has had an impact on Vince Dunn and getting Vince Dunn to play a little bit more two-way. I really do like our pairing of Dunn and Larsson. And again, in the next segment, we're going to talk about the difference between liking this pairing compared to or on our roster and then comparing that to how high-end defensemen are performing elsewhere. And that's where there's a little bit of a rub for me. But I've been saying this for a while. So everydayers, OGers, you shouldn't be surprised to hear me be a little bit more reserved, at least for now, regarding this signing. But again, that's not to say that there aren't good qualities. And again, Jeff Baker breaks these down. Aside from his better statistical numbers, including a franchise-leading 567 hits all time, Larsson is the defenseman a team allowing the 9th fewest goals last season has counted on most to shut down opponents' top-scoring lines. He is a dependable lineup presence, missing just one game in the past 5 years. We've talked about that on the show as well. With a defense-first mindset, but also an underrated ability to lead offensive breakouts. And I love that part of Larsson's game. That's what has made me become more of a big cat believer, if you will. His average ice time of 22.56 was second only to Dunn's 23.05, but was compiled over 22 additional games, meaning Larsson again saw more ice time overall than any other Kraken player for a third consecutive season. And then they talk about him being an Iron Man. He has been a reliable guy for us. And that's honestly huge for the Seattle Kraken. You do want reliable players. You want players that can have that consistency. And Adam Larsson alongside Vince Dunn has been that for sure. I don't have a problem with it. Now, we're going to have to look at the numbers because, again, in a vacuum versus contextualizing this, even just talking about the Seattle Kraken, not even kicking that up to the NHL level, is this a good deal for the Seattle Kraken? And I, for one, have some questions. So let's talk about those coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken, once again brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get 3 weeks of a 3-week free trial, of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with your YouTube TV based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit fanduel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. And remember, we've taken a look at the numbers. We talked about this yesterday. FanDuel has the Seattle Kraken finishing 5 overall in the division per their odds, plus 1,600 to win the division. So is that going to change? Well, you best believe we'll be talking about the FanDuel odds. As always, make sure that you are making your decisions on FanDuel and with any other gambling sites responsibly. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. This is an OG spot right now. If you've been with me for a while, you know I used to shoot. This is the living room / dining area in my apartment. And I used to shoot directly into what was an absolutely empty apartment. I moved here and didn't have a lot. It's taken me a little bit, especially with all the travel I do, to get it together, but I still have this foot injury. I got a nice boot today in the mail. So I'm testing it out. It's just a little easier to maneuver here than in my office. And I can just swirl around on my nice comfy couch and get some elevation, get my compression on. So it's a throwback, a callback. I think actually maybe the last time Allison Lucan was on the podcast, I was sitting at the dining room table. So a little throwback, but thanks as always for making us a part of your daily destination. Go check out Locked On NHL. Make it your second listen of the day. Get a handle on what's going on in the National Hockey League. So go check it out. All right. Adam Larsson. So we talked about obviously the news. Let's break it down though a little bit more because, I think there are some things that we have to keep in mind, including where we are with the salary cap. Now, I believe it was under an Emerald City Hockey thread, people asking, okay, well, how does this impact the Seattle Kraken when it comes to being, at the salary cap? Well, per Puckpedia, let me see if I can pull this up for you YouTubers. Hey, YouTube, what's going on? Per Puckpedia, the Seattle Kraken are effectively right up on the salary cap for this season. And, that's going to be something that they're going to have to figure out. So when it comes to, here we go. There we go. I don't know why it didn't show up the first time, but here we go. All right, we're good. We're cooking with gas, as they say. If you take a look at Puckpedia, and I'll get the overlay out of the way, you can see that the Seattle Kraken right now are at a projected cap hit of $87,995,714. They didn't put the cents on there, but I mean, come on. We're basically right up on that 88 million limit. The active roster is at 21 of 23 players per Puckpedia. Standard contracts are at 44 of 50, retained remaining 3 of 3. Potential bonuses is at 3.1 million. Annual salary cap hit, I just said. So the current cap space, we're in the thousands of dollars here. So this doesn't really leave any wiggle room. So are there going to be any changes? I still think it's possible. And this goes back to a conversation the analysis of a conversation that Mike Benton and Everett Fitzhugh had. You might remember that episode where I was talking about, Everett saying, hey, I don't think we're going to get anything more in free agency per se. At the time that Everett said that, Matty Beniers had not signed his contract. Obviously, Larsson had not signed his contract. But what Everett was saying to Mike Benton on Kraken Radio Network is that, you still got people, and we're going to talk about this later on today's episode, not just coming to rookie camp, but coming to training camp. And some of those players overlap. Yes, obviously the rookies overlap, but also, and we'll get into this, and Locked On Kraken Insiders, I already sent you the full roster. So, players like Shane Wright are coming to rookie camp. They want to get that extra skate in, be leaders for the rookie camp. We've seen that year in and year out. Where does Shane Wright fit into the fold? Is there someone that's going to be a PTO? We haven't heard of any PTOs offered specifically to players to come to the Seattle Kraken, but that's a possibility. And maybe you want to have someone not just to make camp more competitive, which I really think camp is going to be pretty competitive as it is, but I do still think there's some holes, and PTOs going through your farm system, those are affordable, economical ways to maybe bolster this roster. Now, is it a better roster? Yes. On paper, absolutely. We've talked about that before. But remember, we did a lot of tinkering between season 2 and season 3, and it didn't go the way that we wanted it to go. You have to, of course, include the injuries, plagued by injuries. That being said, even with a fully healthy sheet, the Seattle Kraken just weren't getting it done last year. So, I think that the cap situation is probably not where the Kraken want to be. And it's nowhere that we've ever been. We've not ever been this tight up on money before. So, it's going to be interesting to see how things move along. When we look at if this is a good deal for the Kraken, I see that our friend Dom over at The Athletic, he actually tweeted something that I think is worth taking a look at. He tweeted, and we've talked about this, the valuations per year. We were talking about Matty Beniers at the time, but The Athletic does these valuations, which is really, it's data-based analysis, so you have to take this with a grain of salt. I say this all the time. These are projections. Is it the gospel, coming down on the pallets from the mountaintop? No. But it's informative. At minimum, it is informative. And what we see right here is that there's a difference between the projected value of Adam Larsson at $2.6 million to what the Seattle Kraken have given him at 5.3. So, that's a significant difference here. And you can see that according to The Athletic contract value, the value drops for Adam Larsson down to $1.7 million by the time this contract expires in 28-29. Now, who knows how things are going to go for the Kraken or for Adam Larsson? Is he going to still be with Vince Dunn? Will he be elsewhere? We still have to figure that out. But his offensive rating is a -2. His defensive rating is a +2. So, of course, that equals things out. But, this is a guy who, for leadership purposes, for the purposes of being able, quite honestly, to clean up other people's mess at a time, you want to have him on the team. And paying that amount of money to someone who's not going to be a go-to guy, is that really where we want to be? I don't know. These are questions that we have to figure out. I did this before when we took a look at the Beniers breakdown. But so now you have Beniers making over $7 million AAV. That's more than Chandler Stevenson. That's more than Larsson. That's more than Jaden Schwartz. That's more than, that's almost as much as Vince Dunn. That's almost as much. Let's see. 7.124. It's the same as Brandon Montour. It's more than Alexiak. It's tough. We've got a lot of money that's coming out every year for the next handful of years. Montour through 27-28. Larsson through 27, 28. We've got Beniers and Stevenson through 27, 28. So we are expecting that there might be a little bit of reprieve if things go the way we expect them to with the salary cap. And, it's a decent amount of money. It's a decent amount of money on a roster that, as constructed, hasn't shown us, well, literally anything yet. And Matty B really cashing in on the potential, but you kind of have to deliver. And he's not the only one. I think Larsson in a little bit of a different situation. It's not a prove it contract. Is he worth more than that? Well, the Athletic says no. But if you factor in other things, leadership, consistency, things that, you would pay a little bit more to have, I think he gives you a little bit of that. Is 5.25 AAV, is that too much? Is it not enough? I don't know. But I think what's interesting is that none of us know right now, right? None of us know. And maybe that's a little bit of the problem. Like, I say that question mark because isn't that always the way it is with contracts? But I sent this to the outsiders, no, to the insiders, our Locked On Kraken insiders, and interesting replies regarding Adam Larsson. So one of our insiders who's responded to the Larsson news, fairly good deal, kind of with a shrug emoji, but I don't understand locking up so many guys for term on a playoff bubble roster. That's again the question. I don't understand locking up so many guys for term on a playoff bubble roster. And this goes back to the question that honestly is, at this point, I have to say it's nagging me. Are we stock up or stock down on Ronnie Francis? I've given him the benefit of the doubt, but I continue to say and to believe that if we don't see improvements, stealth, quick, in real time improvements when things are maybe heading in the wrong direction, I don't know how the front office goes unscathed. Locking up so many guys for term on a playoff bubble roster from our insiders. That's a really salient, valid concern, and one that I share. If this year goes well, it probably looks awesome. And if it doesn't, maybe having him at a good number for term makes him more valuable as a trade deadline asset. Maybe. That is certainly a way to look at it. And honestly, I had not considered that because I've said it before. The way the Seattle Kraken have played, the way some players on the Seattle Kraken have played in the past year and a half, let's just say, who are we going to send them off to? What is the body of work? How are we going to get anything in return? Because it was kind of a, we got to the champagne level of a second round playoff series on an apple cider, a sparkling cider diet. And then we kind of just stayed there. We never leveled up. Not really, or not in the right ways. So another thing I wanted to mention about the Larsson extension, this is some data that Emerald City Hockey put together. After the Adam Larsson extension, the Seattle Kraken have $24,342,857 committed to their top four defensemen in 25-26. That's the sixth most in the NHL behind Buffalo, Minnesota, Colorado, Boston, and Ottawa. So you best believe this year, and especially next season, keep this in mind, because I want to see how we rank defensively with these teams. Now, there's this thing where, you want to be in good company. So this is a stat, this is a data point that says the Seattle Kraken are in good company, but it's just now down to the math and the valuation compared to the performance on the ice. So, I didn't want to miss out on that when we're talking about if this was a good extension. Maybe not, maybe so. But, I think these are definitely Buffalo, a little interesting. Minnesota can go up and down. Colorado, Boston, for sure. Ottawa, maybe on the cusp there. But these are some teams that we're at least talking about making pushes to the playoffs. So there's a saying, keeping up with the Joneses. Keeping up with the Joneses. Is that what's happening here? Kind of maybe looks like it. I don't know if it's this Larsson deal in a silo, in a vacuum that bothers me. I just continue to question where this is all going. Where are we headed? How does this make sense? And like a couple of years ago, I was almost begging the Kraken, right, to spend money. And they're spending money now. They are spending money. So maybe I should have been more specific. Maybe this is on me. We should have been more specific for those of us who asked the Kraken to spend more money and to do more in the offseason. We should have been more specific. So we'll take the heat on that one. Coming up next, let's talk about the rookie roster, rookie camp roster, and the schedule, what you can expect coming next week in Kraken camp, like literally in or at Seattle Kraken camp. That's coming up on Locked On Kraken. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here reminding you, once you listen to this episode, once you've kind of caught up with some of the other Locked On Kraken episodes, remember, I kind of talked about this yesterday. Is Larsson being a good player for this roster? Does that make him a good, dare I even say, great player for the future of the Kraken? Are we future-proofing? We talked about that a little bit yesterday. So go check that out and then head over to Locked On NHL. Right now, though, there is good news. It's not all doom and gloom or hypothetical, questions about the franchise. We have a roster. Wrong graphic. Kraken camp roster. This is the graphic that was given to us in the emails and on social media. So, I think that there's a lot of excitement. Put this out to the Locked On Kraken insiders. Who are we excited for? Of course, everyone is excited for Berkeley Catton. We also got a vote for Ty Nelson. I mean, back-to-back Stuckey Cup champion. What's not to like? I'm excited for, I mentioned Shane Wright. I'm excited for Shane Furcus. I'm excited for, Robertson. I've talked to Tucker a few times here in Tulsa, and I'm excited to see what Tucker can do. So I think, there's going to be some interesting names, and I think this list will get bigger once we get to training camp. Now, what can we expect? So what is the schedule? Well, they sent us that too, so let's go over it. So Seattle Kraken rookie camp will open next week, Thursday, September 12th. There will be a session at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time at KCI, Kraken Community Iceplex. These are subject to change. I will note that. They get started a little earlier on Friday. They'll start at 9:30 a.m. On September 14th, they have 8:30 to 9:15 practice at Toyota Sports Performance Center, and then they get ready for the rookie tournament versus Colorado. Remember, we talked about this the other day. So this is going to be in LA. They're taking our Kraken rookies are participating in the rookie tournament on Saturday, September 14th and Sunday, September 15th. I don't know. Again, maybe something that we'll have to wait and see. I'll just put it this way. We might be able to have access to these games, to these exhibition games, and we might, if that's the case, hear a familiar voice. So I think we're still waiting on the information for that. September 16th is a day off. And then Tuesday, September 17th, they hit the ice at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Rookie camp. So we're going to get to talk about, we'll be hearing from the rookies next week. We'll be hearing from Dan, maybe from Jessica as well. And I'm super excited. And then the week of Monday, September 6th, Locked On Kraken hits the road, or, in my case, I hit the road, and we'll be at training camp and some special news coming down the pike. So you might see, some new voices joining the podcast on a more regular basis. So we'll have all of that and so much more to get into in the next handful of days here on Locked On Kraken. Remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to one another, hold fast, stay true, and let's go Kraken. Let's go Kraken rookies. Let's go Kraken PTOs. Let's go Kraken vets. Let's go Kraken salary cap, maintenance. Let's just freaking go Kraken. All right. I will catch you on the next episode. Until then, like I said, just be good, be well. Please take care of your limbs. I've got my foot in the ice bath right now. Multitasking. That's what we do. All right. Until the next episode. Peace out, everybody.